speaking to you from Leicester, where parts of our city are still very much in lockdown. Those of us in the suburbs have had some release of freedom, so we've been able to get a haircut, have a meal out and see some friends. I've been inconvenienced a little, but for many people, coronavirus has been a crisis. And for those for whom it has been a crisis, they may be asking, well, where is God? And we all face crises at some point. The prophet Joel has truths to remind us of. Where is God in the crisis? At some point during the first millennium before Christ, the land of Judea faced a crisis plague of locusts. As I read the books on Joel, they used the word unprecedented a number of times. Well, where have we heard that word recently? This was a locust plague like few others, came in wave after wave, and it left the land devastated, the economy destroyed, and the political structures unstable. One writer said, well, where are the locusts today in our technologically brilliant but ethically bankrupt communities? That was written before coronavirus. It doesn't take much imagination to know that what we are going through has parallels. It's shocking, isn't it, how vulnerable we are as a race of people to microscopic killer viruses. With all our brilliant understanding and astonishing developments and progress in science and technology, we are still incredibly vulnerable, as the people in the time of Joel were. And Joel says, look, this is a warning, a trumpet blast, chapter 2, verse 1. For those who are complacent before God, God speaks urgently, personally, directly. Chapter 2 and verse 1, blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy hill. A warning that God in love and holiness is concerned for his people, for their wrong values, for them missing out on life. And it's a wake-up call to the reality of the pain and suffering of many, and actually to what they are walking into, what they are missing out on. Chapter 2 and 25 says God sent the locusts as a warning. He could see how the people of Judea were on a mission to self-destruct with their arrogant selfishness and greed. It was a wake-up call that their life could be so much better if they came back to God. This is tough, holy love at work. It isn't easy, but it is for our good. A friend of mine, her 15-year-old daughter, has really struggled with lockdown. She has some emotional and mental issues, and when lockdown meant that she couldn't meet with friends and all her routines were stopped, she just hid herself in her room. She didn't look after herself, she didn't come down for meals, and she just was looking at her phone all the time. After a few days of this, her parents warned her that if she carried on, then they would remove the phone from her. The warning was not heeded, and so the phone was taken. And the daughter screamed and sobbed. She accused her parents of not loving her. She threw things, she ranted, and she swore. But then a couple of days later, she came down, showered, fully dressed, and ready to have breakfast with her parents. Tough love had worked, but it was tough on the parents too. 2 months on and the daughter is still doing well. Our image of love is so often sentimental, but God's love is holy and powerful and wants the best for his people, and he does not mind some discomfort for us if we will learn important lessons about living in humility and trust before him. And Joel says the right response to a crisis is to turn back to God, to seek God. In 1940, George VI, as you probably know, called the nation to prayer. We and our allies are sure that our fight is against evil, and for a world in which goodness and honour may be the foundation of the life of men in every land. That we may be worthily matched with this new summons of destiny, I desire solemnly to call my people to prayer and dedication. Following that day of prayer, the miracle of Dunkirk happened, and the king offered a prayer of thanksgiving for God's deliverance. Joel is quick to remind us that God is a loving Father who is driven to extreme action in order to protect his people. Chapter 2 and verse 13 says, God is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in love. God is kind and merciful. He takes a deep breath and puts up with a lot. This most patient God, extravagant in love, is always ready to cancel a crisis. But God will act in judgment and mercy when his wayward children need it. Joel would say the global pandemic could well be a wake-up call from God in judgment and mercy, pointing out the failings of the world, the arrogance, the selfishness, the greed, but also reminding us of the mercy of God, that he is kind, forgiving, gracious and compassionate. May God be with you in your crisis. Goodbye for now.